The stars hadn't changed. Not really. They still blinked from their cold, quiet thrones in the night, like silent gods watching a universe that forgot their names. For Captain Lurok of the Zandari Dominion, patrolling Sector 12A was just another boring assignment, a piece of space littered with abandoned tech and ancient wrecks. But this time there was something strange, something not on any map. A moon-sized construct orbiting a dead star, silent, lifeless, but giving off faint pulses of energy, barely noticeable, unless you were looking for it. And Lurok was looking. They called it Object 7HUM4N, a classification used for unidentified megastructures. Most were just ruins left behind by extinct species, echoes of civilizations too proud to see their own end coming. But this one felt different, too intact. The scans showed a thick outer shell made of a metal no current species could replicate, not even the Varnok, who were supposed to be the galaxy's top engineers. Lurok's ship, the Zenthari Blade, hovered nearby as drones flew in. They barely made a dent before the structure began to respond. Not aggressively, not even defensively. It just woke up. Soft at first, like a heartbeat stirring in deep sleep. Then lights ignited across its surface in impossible patterns, forming what looked like words. No species could translate them. None except the archivists of Ilir. And they were terrified. The message was simple, but chilling. This is Earth. Do not disturb the human empire. That was the first time in 5,000 years that anyone heard the word human. Most thought they were a myth. A warning passed down by older races like bedtime tales for naughty children. But the stories were always the same. Humans were violent, brilliant, unpredictable. They burned through the stars like wildfire. They won wars they shouldn't have even survived. They disappeared after the Apex conflict, vanished completely after a mysterious final battle that wiped out 10 other species with them. And now, something inside their tomb was waking up. Lurok should have left. Every instinct told him to flee, report it, and let the High Dominion decide. But he couldn't. Curiosity got the better of him. The Empire had grown arrogant, lazy even. They needed threats like these to remind them they weren't gods. And maybe, deep down, Lurok just wanted to see if the stories were true. He authorized a boarding mission. The first thing the soldiers noticed inside was the silence, the kind that pressed against your skin. Then the cold. Not just the temperature, but a lifelessness that felt ancient and angry. The walls pulsed with low light as they stepped deeper into the structure. Every now and then, a panel would light up, showing strange creatures, humans, smiling, laughing, crying, like memories trapped in glass. Then they found the chamber. At the center of the construct, suspended in stasis, was a single human. A male, massive by alien standards. Muscles dense, skin pale, covered in old scars. He looked asleep. Peaceful, almost. But monitors around him showed his vitals climbing. Heart rate, brain activity, neural spikes unlike anything ever recorded. Then he opened his eyes. They weren't just eyes, they were weapons. The soldiers froze. For the first time in their lives, they felt primitive, like prey. The human looked around slowly, confused but alert. Then he spoke in perfect galactic common, as if he'd never missed a day. "Who woke me?" he asked. No one could answer. The room began to tremble. Lights across the structure turned blood red. Outside, Lurok's ship registered a massive energy surge building beneath the surface. The human took a slow breath. He looked toward the dome's high ceiling, where a symbol glowed bright. A symbol once feared across galaxies. A flaming earth surrounded by stars and claws. He smiled, cold and knowing. Time to finish what we started. The tremors didn't stop. They started low, like the hum of an ancient beast stretching its limbs after an endless slumber. But soon they became violent. Whole sections of the structure lit up as if they'd just remembered who they were. Systems came online: navigation, weapons, atmosphere control, each one waking up like an organ finding its heartbeat. Captain Lurok watched the data scroll across his monitor in disbelief. "Sir," his comms officer whispered, voice trembling, "that thing is a warship." Not just any warship. This was a human dreadnought, a relic of the Apex War, the kind of machine built not just to win, but to erase. It wasn't a myth, it was real, and it was powering up. Inside, the human was now standing. The stasis fluid had drained from the chamber, and the glass casing cracked open like the lid of a coffin. He stepped forward, naked but proud, unfazed by the armored soldiers pointing energy rifles at his head. His name, as revealed by the display behind him, was General Adam Vex, commander of the last human armada. "You've made a mistake," he said flatly. "Waking me wasn't your right." One of the soldiers tried to speak, to explain they were researchers, explorers, not enemies. But Vex didn't care. He turned away, walking past them, his fingers dragging across walls that now rippled with life. The ship responded to his touch like it had been waiting. It recognized him. It obeyed him. In the command bridge, Lurok could barely keep up. The ship, Earth's Wrath, the registry now confirmed, was rewriting its architecture. Shield systems rose from deep vaults. Weapons bays unfurled like wings. Fusion cores spun to life with impossible output, dwarfing the energy signature of the Zenthari blade by tenfold. Even the Dominion's flagships didn't come close. "Evacuate," Lurok ordered, cold sweat dripping down his neck. "Get the team out, now." But it was too late. The human had reached the control deck inside. He stood before a circular console of black, obsidian-like material. Lights wrapped around his forearms, scanning his DNA, his neural signature, his memories. It accepted him without question. In a whisper, he gave the ship a single command: "Show me what's left of the galaxy." A massive projection filled the room. The galaxy map. New borders, new empires, none of them human. The stars they once called home were now renamed, occupied, reshaped. The colonies, the outposts, the birthplaces of heroes, gone or forgotten. No statues, no mention in the histories. It wasn't just defeat, it was erasure. Vex's jaw clenched. "They buried us," he muttered, "like we never existed." He turned back to the soldiers. "Who rules now?" No one answered, but the ship did. It accessed galactic channels, pulling in news feeds, government logs, war reports. The Zandari Dominion, the Varnock Alliance, the Ziari Syndicate, all powerful, all arrogant, all treating the stars like toys passed between kings, and all of them had written off humanity as extinct. Adam Vex laughed once, a dry, bitter sound. Then it's time they remembered. The ship's engines fired. Outside, the Zenthari blade began to pull back, but not fast enough. A pulse wave knocked its systems offline. Gravity distorted. The dreadnought wasn't just moving, it was preparing for war. The old kind, the human kind. Total, unrelenting, and personal. Lurok's last visual before losing the feed was of the human's face, staring directly at the camera. His eyes burned not with rage, but something worse. Purpose. The human race had slept for 5,000 years, and now they were waking up angry. The darkness between stars held its breath. From the edge of the ruined star system, the Earth's Wrath emerged like a ghost ship reborn. Its hull no longer dulled by time, but glowing with the same harsh brilliance that had once turned galaxies into war zones. Systems across half a dozen sectors detected its reactivation. Pirate clans, Dominion outposts, fringe listening stations, all flooded with one name repeated across old human frequencies. Adam Vex is awake. It wasn't a message. It was a warning. On board, Vex moved like a man stepping back into his own legend. Every corridor he passed adjusted to his presence. The artificial intelligence, once dormant, now whispered familiar voices to him. Names of dead officers, ship logs from battles long gone, recordings of Earth's final stand. They flooded back with painful clarity. His mind was sharp, trained for strategy and violence, but the ache in his chest was undeniable. Everyone he knew was gone. Everyone. His world was erased while he slept. The last war had cost them everything, and now the enemy didn't even remember his people's name. Until now. In the command center, holograms danced before his eyes. Alien empires fattened by peace, arrogant with age. They thought the apex predator was extinct. They built their world in the carcass of his. Vex studied the Dominion first. The Zandari had the largest navy, the strongest grip on politics, and, as it turned out, the biggest mouth when it came to denying humanity's role in galactic history. "Captain Lurok," Vex said calmly as he brought up the Dominion officer's last transmission, "curiosity made you brave, but it will make your people stupid." He narrowed in on their capital world, Varnassus Prime. 72 billion citizens. No defense grid strong enough to stop what Earth's wrath could now do. But it wasn't time to strike yet. Not yet. He needed to test the waters, to remind the galaxy that humanity didn't return with diplomacy. They returned with fire. "Computer," he said, and the ship's voice responded in an eerie, feminine tone. "Ready, Commander Vex. Identify the nearest Dominion military installation within strike range. Zandari Forward Outpost 913, approximately 0.7 light cycles, lightly defended, mostly research personnel." He paused. "Do they know we're here?" "No, Commander. They are not prepared." Vex clenched his jaw. "Prepare all weapons. I want them to see us coming. Open a channel, public frequency, galactic standard." There was a short pause, then a soft beep. He stood in front of the transmission field, face lit only by the blue glow of the controls. His voice was low, but it carried with the force of a storm. "To the Dominion, and to any who remember, I am Adam Vex, General of Earth's wrath. Humanity is no longer asleep. We remember everything. We remember you." He paused just long enough for silence to do its work. "And now, you will remember us." He cut the signal. No threats, no ultimatums, just truth, served cold. Moments later, the ship leapt into faster-than-light travel, tearing a hole through space like a scar. The target, Forward Outpost 913, sat quietly above a gas giant, its crew of scientists and junior officers unaware of the predator approaching. They barely had time to scream. The dreadnought dropped from warp, weapon bays already open. Ion cannons fired first, disabling the outpost's shields. Then came the rail plasma strikes, cutting clean through titanium supports and atmosphere layers. The facility split apart like paper in a storm. No survivors, no resistance. It took exactly 83 seconds. Vex watched from the bridge, face unreadable. This wasn't about the outpost. It was about the message. Dominion networks lit up with panic, emergency meetings, fleet alerts, political demands, and above it all, one chilling realization. The humans were back, and they didn't come in peace. Inside the ship, as the fires of the outpost still flickered on the view screen, Vex turned to his AI. "Begin activating the others." "The other dreadnoughts, sir?" He nodded slowly. "Wake them all. We won't fight this war alone. The silence that followed the outpost's destruction wasn't peaceful. It was heavy, pregnant with fear. Across the galaxy, the name Adam Vex spread like poison through political chambers, war councils, and pirate dens alike. The Zandari Dominion launched a full-scale mobilization, scrambling fleets to known human ruins and border sectors. The Varnock Alliance, once dismissive, now opened diplomatic channels they hadn't touched in millennia. Even the shadowy Ziari Syndicate, too proud to admit fear, locked down their black market trade routes. No one was safe anymore, because no one knew how many more were coming. Inside Earth's wrath, the work had already begun. The AI, now fully reawakened and operating at full capacity, scanned old human data vaults hidden deep within the galactic fabric, coded coordinates, encrypted under ancient Earth protocols. These were humanity's final contingency. The Last Flame Project. "Status on Dreadnought sleepers?" Vex asked, seated on the bridge as the stars stretched before them. The AI responded, smooth and clinical. 4 potential signals found. 1 active, 3 dormant, located in deep space vaults beyond known Dominion territory. Vex nodded. "Begin remote wake-up sequence. I want those ships online within the cycle. Compliance, activating, Lion of Terra, Red Winter, Voice of Stone, and Kinscourge." He exhaled, a mix of nostalgia and grim satisfaction. Each dreadnought had been a symbol of power, of defiance, of sacrifice. Lion of Terra had led the first counterstrike at the Battle of Rotau. Red Winter had held a collapsing star system long enough to evacuate 3 million colonists. Voice of Stone had gone silent after detonating its own core to collapse a wormhole the enemy used for reinforcements. And Kinscourge. No one even spoke of Kinscourge. If they were all intact, then this was no longer a one-man war. This was a resurrection. As the ship shifted course toward the Lion's Vault, nestled near the collapsed Tau Sarn Nebula, Vex found himself in the memory chambers. They were never meant for strategy or command. They were personal. The ship's AI had stored the images of Earth's final moments in them, as if to remind any awakened human of what was lost. He stood alone, watching a looped projection of Earth in flames. A voice, his daughter's, played quietly in the background. A recording from just before the last battle. She'd been 6 years old. "Daddy, will you come back soon? Mommy says the stars are loud." He swallowed hard, teeth gritted. They were all gone. His family, his people. Wiped out because the other species couldn't stand humanity's strength, its ability to adapt, to resist, to fight when others surrendered. Earth didn't fall because it was weak. It fell because it refused to kneel. They called it the Apex Conflict. But Vex knew better. It was a genocide. The only reason he had survived was because of Project Avernus, deep stasis hibernation chambers designed for the last of humanity's top generals and scientists. Not to return as kings, but as vengeance. Only he had reawakened. For now. Back on the bridge, the AI interrupted his thoughts. "We are approaching the Lion of Terra. Signal is strong. Hull integrity at 86%. Core systems dormant but stable." He nodded. "Begin the awakening process. I want full link-up." The moment Earth's wrath came within range, it released an ancient handshake signal, one only another human dreadnought could understand. The Lion of Terra responded instantly. Its systems flickered back to life, lights cascading across its surface like lightning storms. The ship was older, battle-scarred, but it moved. Suddenly the transmission cracked open. A face appeared. She was older than Vex remembered. White streaks ran through her once black hair, a scar across her brow. Her voice hit him like a ghost wrapped in steel. "Vex?" she asked. "You're alive?" Vex blinked, stunned. "Arden." General Arden Vale, his second-in-command, thought dead. She'd been on the final push into the Nebula line when the enemy had cornered their fleet. She was a war legend in her own right. Her voice was calm, but beneath it, rage. "They erased us, Adam, like we never mattered." He nodded slowly. "They thought the war was over," he said. "It's only just begun." The Lion of Terra moved like a wounded predator. Scarred, slow, but still terrifying. Its awakening echoed across nearby space. As lights flared along its hull and dormant turrets rotated to test ancient hydraulics, the Dominion scrambled scout vessels to intercept. But they were too late. The dreadnought had already linked with Earth's wrath, and more importantly, with General Adam Vex. On board the Lion, Arden Vale stood tall in the command deck, her uniform tattered but still bearing the old Earth sigil over her chest. Her presence was exactly how Vex remembered, commanding, sharp-eyed, the type of leader who'd stare down a collapsing star and refuse to blink. "You were the last person I expected to see again," she said over the interlink channel, her voice steady but tight. "I could say the same," Vex replied. "We put too much faith in the failsafes. I figured I'd wake up to nothing but ash." "Well, you were half right," she muttered, her gaze distant for a moment. "I've been awake for 27 years, Adam, alone, watching the galaxy get fat off our silence." That number hit him harder than any rail blast. 27 years. She'd endured the aftermath without backup, watching from the shadows as the galaxy built a golden empire over humanity's grave. "Why didn't you call for me?" he asked, voice quieter now. "I tried. System glitches, signal corruptions. They tampered with our failsafes. They wanted us lost forever." Her eyes hardened. "But now that we're together, we tear it all down." Vex almost smiled. Almost. Together their two ships moved in formation, heading toward the next target, Red Winter. Its last known location was near the icy remnants of the collapsed star cluster known as the Hailstorm Vale, a place so desolate, not even pirates dared venture there. That's why humanity hid their second blade there. En route, Vex and Arden walked through their respective war rooms, both revisiting battle maps and encryption logs as if flipping through old scars. Each victory, each defeat, they were no longer just history. They were fuel. "Dominion fleets are consolidating," Arden reported. "They've stationed dreadnoughts around their major colonies, fortified the Zara line. They know we're coming." "Let them prepare," Vex said. "They've never fought humans at full strength. Not really." Arden glanced at the screen. "And what happens when the rest of the galaxy joins them? We made enemies, Adam. Whole species fear our name." "Good," he replied coldly. "Let them remember why." They emerged from FTL above the Hailstorm Vale, space filled with frozen wreckage and ice asteroids large enough to crush a moon. It was the graveyard of an entire Dominion fleet wiped out in Earth's final retaliation. Somewhere deep inside the debris field, Red Winter waited. Their scanners swept the field. "There," Arden pointed. "Thermal spike, beneath the ice crust. She's dormant, but alive." The Earth's wrath released a pulse beacon, followed by an encrypted command known only to the dreadnoughts of Earth's last fleet. Seconds stretched into silence, then a rumble through the void. Ice cracked apart like glass struck by a hammer. And slowly, like a mountain rising from the abyss, Red Winter broke free. Its hull was bulkier, heavier than either Lion or Wrath, designed for brutal, close-range destruction. Its surface still bore the scars from orbital sieges, deep plasma burns, jagged armor gaps fused with alien metal. But it powered on. Lights reignited, turrets rotated, its engines purred like an animal that had waited too long for blood. The moment the ship came online, a signal beamed through. "General Cato reporting," said a gruff, gravel-voiced man. "Well, I'll be damned. I thought I was the last one." Vex grinned. "Welcome back, old friend." Cato's laughter cracked through the channel like thunder. "You woke me up just in time. I was about to run out of whiskey." Arden's voice joined in, calm but commanding. "3 of us now. 3 blades of earth." "Then we make them bleed," Cato said. Vex stared at the formation now unfolding before him. Earth's Wrath, Lion of Terra, and Red Winter, the first wave of resurrection. But this wasn't just revenge. This was reclamation. "Prepare coordinates," Vex ordered. "Our next target is Zarnok 9. Arden raised an eyebrow. "That's a civilian colony." "It used to be Earth's. They renamed it after erasing the humans who lived there." The bridge went quiet. "No survivors?" Arden asked, though she already knew the answer. "None," Vex said. "We're not starting with their armies. We're starting with their pride." Zarnok 9 shimmered like a jewel against the cold backdrop of space. It was beautiful, artificially so. Wide arcologies stretched into its atmosphere like chrome fingers. Lush, terraformed jungles wrapped the surface, maintained by climate stabilizers the Dominion bragged about on every broadcast. But Adam Vex saw none of that. All he saw was a lie. A stage dressed in alien luxury, built on human bones. It had once been known as New Athens. One of the first colonies founded after Earth's expansion wave, it had been home to nearly 20 million humans, scientists, poets, children. Not soldiers, not threats, just people who believed in a future that now lay beneath Dominion pavement. "Status report," Vex ordered from the bridge of Earth's Wrath. Arden answered from the Lion of Terra, her voice tight with focus. "Orbital defense grid active. 2 long-range turrets, 6 intercept batteries. No dreadnoughts in the area, just 2 patrol cruisers and local militia." Cato's gruff voice chimed in from Red Winter. "Easy pickings." But Vex didn't smile. "This isn't about the kill," he said. "It's about the message. We hit them here. We tell the whole Dominion. We remember what they did." His eyes scanned the surface data, locking in on a cluster of buildings where human archives once stood. Now it was a Dominion memorial plaza, complete with statues of Zandari liberators. A historical rewrite, carved in stone. "Prepare bombardment coordinates. Target the plaza. Leave the civilian centers intact." Arden hesitated. "You sure?" Vex nodded. "We're not monsters. We're reminders." Earth's Wrath descended from low orbit, its massive frame blotting out the sun above Zarnok 9's capital. Citizens looked up in awe and confusion, some too young to recognize the shape of a human dreadnought, others old enough to freeze in terror. Then the speakers roared to life, broadcasting in galactic common across every frequency. "This is General Adam Vex of the Human Empire." The name dropped like a hammer. "You stand on the bones of our people. You erased our names. You buried our dead without honor. Today, you will remember." In synchronized precision, the 3 dreadnoughts locked weapons, high-orbit kinetic cannons deployed, and with thunder that split the sky, they fired. The plaza vanished. Not crumbled, not cracked, erased. Statues turned to molten slag. The Dominion Museum turned to rubble. The monument at the center, an obelisk dedicated to the liberation of primitive species, shattered in mid-air, torn apart by the force of vengeance. But not a single civilian home was touched. The message was loud, surgical, and unforgettable. Within minutes, Dominion news feeds exploded, emergency transmissions, diplomatic outcries, proclamations of terrorism. But they didn't call Vex a terrorist. They called him what he was, a general of a dead empire returned from the grave. Arden watched the feed in silence. They're scared. Cato chuckled darkly. They should be. But Vex wasn't satisfied. Not yet. He looked deeper into the planetary archives, which the AI had silently infiltrated during the attack. What he found turned his stomach. Zarnok 9 wasn't just a colony. It was a re-education facility. Built on top of human ruins, it served as a psychological reform center for hybrid offspring. Children born from the few humans who had been enslaved before the extinction. Vex's voice dropped to a whisper. They took our blood and tried to breed us out of history. His fists clenched. Arden read the report, too, her face pale. There are survivors, she whispered. Descendants. Can we extract them? He asked. The AI answered immediately. Yes, probability of successful extraction exceeds 91% with coordinated distraction. Vex turned to Cato. You up for a little noise? Cato grinned. You had me at blow it up. Minutes later, Red Winter launched a series of surface strikes on the outer industrial districts, drawing away all remaining defenses. Meanwhile, a stealth pod descended from Earth's wrath, landing outside the re-education center under heavy jamming fields. Inside the center, the children watched the sky burn from behind barred windows. Their caretakers, Dominion agents in polished uniforms, scrambled in confusion, yelling into dead comms. The door exploded inward. Human operatives, awakened by the dreadnought's call, stormed in, weapons drawn but aimed only at the guards. One soldier, a young woman named Lyra, approached a child no older than 7. The girl looked up with wide, terrified eyes. Lyra knelt and smiled, tears in her eyes. You're not alone anymore. The children didn't cry. Not at first. They were too shocked, too conditioned, too used to the silence of control, the cold stares of Dominion handlers, the metallic voices reading out their ancestry reports like war crimes. They had never seen humans before. Not like this. Not real. Not alive. Their caretakers always said humans were extinct, a failed species whose blood was too violent to be trusted. But Lyra knelt there, her weapon slung over her shoulder, offering her hand to the girl with the wide, amber eyes. We're human, she said, her voice trembling with emotion. Like you. The little girl touched Lyra's face, confused. But you're not sick, Lyra blinked. What? They said the reason the old ones died was because they were sick. In the head, because of anger. Her words dropped like a knife into Lyra's heart. That was how the Dominion had rewritten history, turning pride into madness, resistance into disease. They hadn't just tried to erase humanity, they'd tried to rewrite it. Lyra turned to her squad. Secure the rest, move fast, minimal noise. Within 10 minutes, the re-education center was cleared. 37 children, most under 12, all of them marked as genetic remnants, a sterile term for what they really were, survivors. Back aboard Earth's Wrath, Vex watched the extraction through the live feed, jaw tight. They called us monsters, he muttered. Arden's face flickered onto his console. This was always more than just killing us. They were afraid of the idea of us. And they should have been, Vex said. We adapt. We remember. We rise. Cato's voice crackled in with the usual gravel and fire. So what now? We send these kids off to some hidden corner? Let them grow up in fear like we did? No, Vex replied. We train them. We teach them who they are, what was taken from them. We give them their names back. He turned toward the med bay, where the children were being processed, scanned, and treated by Earth's long-dormant medical AI. The machines moved like ghosts through muscle memory, as if eager to heal again. The little girl, her name was Tali, sat on a stool, staring at a screen displaying images of old Earth, oceans, forests, birds. She looked up at the nurse drone and asked, "Is this where I came from?" "No," the drone replied in its soft, programmed voice, "but it's where your blood comes from, and where your enemies made a mistake." Meanwhile, Dominion space reeled from the Zarnok attack. Emergency councils convened in panic. Political blame raged across the halls of their central senate. High Chancellor Erix of the Zandari Dominion, a tall, silver-skinned being with golden ocular implants, stood at the head of the chamber. "We are facing an enemy that should not exist," he growled, voice amplified to the vast crowd. "These are not mere terrorists. These are ghosts of a genocidal past. They seek chaos, collapse. We cannot allow them to infect this galaxy again." Some senators called for negotiation. Others demanded full-scale war. But the fear was undeniable. Because it wasn't just the dreadnoughts anymore. Across forgotten ruins, across dead space and uncharted systems, ancient human beacons began to pulse. Outposts lost to time flickered with life. Stealth ships, buried beneath crusted moons, began to awaken. Long-dormant satellites whispered old Earth codes. And scattered across the stars, other survivors, humans who had gone into hiding, hybrids who had been raised in shadows, AI allies who had never shut down, began to respond. The human empire hadn't died. It had gone silent. And now its silence was over. Back in orbit, Vex stood before the bridge's wide viewport, the stars cold and distant ahead. Arden and Kato stood beside him, arms folded, eyes watching the movement of Dominion fleets scrambling across space in fear. "You know what comes next?" Arden said. Vex nodded. "They'll strike hard. Try to bury us before we gather more strength." "They'll fail," Kato grunted. "They don't know what it means to fight for your dead." "No," Vex agreed, "but they're about to learn." He turned back to the console, pulled up a map of Dominion core worlds, and pointed to one in particular. "Target the Zandari Senate homeworld. We don't destroy it. Not yet. We remind them." Arden raised an eyebrow. "Remind them of what?" Vex's gaze didn't waver. "That this galaxy belongs to us, too. The core world of the Dominion, Varela Prime, had never seen war. For over 3,000 years, it had stood untouched, a gleaming citadel of power. Towering cities reached into the sky like spears of crystal and steel. Defense grids pulsed quietly beneath its clouds, wrapped in layers of complacency, their systems tested only during ceremonial drills. The Zandari Senate ruled from its heart, a sprawling fortress palace suspended in mid-air, built atop the ruins of an old battlefield they never acknowledged. Now, for the first time in centuries, alarms screamed through its golden spires. From the shadow of Varela's second moon, Earth's wrath, Lion of Terra, and Red Winter uncloaked in perfect formation. Dominion scanners registered them too late. Panic spread through command centers, where officers fumbled to understand how the most secure planet in the galaxy had been breached by ghosts from a forgotten war. Adam Vex stood on the bridge, his expression stone. "No weapons," he ordered. "No strikes. This isn't destruction. It's demonstration." "Are you sure?" Kato asked through grit teeth. "I've waited a long time to put this planet in the dirt." "They need to see our face," Vex said, "before we become their reckoning." The dreadnoughts hovered just above the stratosphere, their massive silhouettes casting a shadow across Varela's capital. People poured into the streets, officials screamed into comms, and then, just like before, the sky spoke. "We are humanity. You called us extinct, you called us savage, you erased us. Now we remember, now you will." Every screen across the planet was overwritten. Footage of Earth's last days played in chilling clarity. Cities burning as alien fleets bombarded the atmosphere, human soldiers dragged from their homes, children crying in evacuation ships that never launched. Images long deleted, censored, rewritten. The truth returned like fire. Then the message cut to real time. Vex stood tall in the broadcast, surrounded by the insignia of the old human empire. Arden at his left, Cato at his right. A triangle of vengeance and memory. "Varela Prime sits on the bones of our murdered," Vex said. "You turned our blood into myth. You raised your children on the lie that we were monsters, when it was you who lit the match that burned our worlds." He leaned forward, voice low, lethal. "This is your warning." Then the screen went black. No blast followed. No invasion. Just silence. But it wasn't peace. It was promise. The three dreadnoughts pulled back in unison, slipping from orbit like ghosts again, leaving behind only the crushing weight of fear and the realization that the galaxy's forgotten apex predator had returned. On board Earth's Wrath, the bridge was quiet. "We've lit the flame," Arden said softly. "And the fire's spreading," Cato added. Vex turned to the center holomap. Beacon signals flickered across the outer rim, old allies answering the call, rogue AIs reactivating, exiled humans emerging from beneath alien-dominated cityscapes. Even a few defectors, Ziari rebels, disillusioned Varnok, and hybrids from colonies like Zarnok 9, pledged allegiance to a cause they'd only heard of in forbidden whispers. A human reclamation had begun. In the medbay, Tali, the little girl from the re-education center, sat watching the news feeds with the other children. Lyra crouched beside her, explaining what each symbol meant, what each star system had once been called before it was renamed, stolen. Tali looked up. "Will we ever go home?" Lyra placed a hand on her shoulder. "We're already on our way." Back in the war room, Vex met with Arden and Cato, now joined by 3 more commanders who had answered the ancient dreadnought summons, others like them who had survived the Purge, hidden in stasis, or embedded in deep cover missions for centuries. "We rebuild the fleet," Arden said. "We gather survivors, reclaim technology, and take back the colonies that were ours." "And when the Dominion retaliates?" one of the new commanders asked. Vex stared at the glowing core of the galaxy in the center display. "They will," he said. "And when they do, we won't hide anymore." Cato slammed his fist into the table. "Then we make sure their fear is justified." The room fell quiet, and in that silence, something stirred. Not vengeance. Purpose. For 5,000 years, humanity had been silent, sleeping, buried. Now they were awake, and the galaxy would never sleep again. The scientists had warned about climate change and rising sea levels, but nobody could have predicted the truth hidden beneath the waves. Earth's oceans, vast and unexplored, held a secret so unimaginable that even the most advanced alien civilizations never saw it coming. It started with the disappearance of the Indomitable, a United Nations research vessel charting the depths of the Mariana Trench. 1 minute, it was sending routine data on subaquatic ecosystems, and the next, nothing. Satellite feeds showed nothing out of the ordinary, no distress signal, just an eerie silence from the crew. Search missions found nothing but the vessel's twisted, empty shell wedged into the trench wall. Captain Amelia Graves was the first to voice her suspicion. She didn't buy the official line about a catastrophic hull failure. As the captain of the deep-sea submersible Poseidon's Spear, she'd seen plenty of strange things in the ocean. Her gut told her it was something far worse than a mechanical malfunction. When the UN tasked her with investigating the wreck, she jumped at the chance. As Poseidon's Spear descended into the inky blackness of the trench, Graves and her crew couldn't shake the feeling of being watched. Sonar pings bounced off seemingly empty water, returning distorted echoes that sounded almost deliberate. Her co-pilot, Jace Miller, glanced nervously at the monitors. "Captain," he whispered, his voice barely concealing his fear. "Are those signatures?" Graves squinted at the screen. Tiny blips, hundreds of them, moving with unnatural precision. Her blood ran cold. Before she could react, an encrypted message flashed on her private terminal, displaying just one line: "Do not engage. Return to surface immediately." Ignoring the order, Graves urged the submersible deeper. The pressure creaked around them, and the lights struggled to penetrate the darkness. Then they saw it. A colossal metallic structure embedded in the trench wall, camouflaged by layers of sediment and coral. As they approached, parts of the structure hummed to life, and dozens of sleek, jet-black vessels began to emerge from hidden docking bays. Graves couldn't breathe. They weren't just ships. They were war machines, advanced and lethal. Each vessel bore markings not seen on any Earth-made craft. Her heart pounded as one of the ships adjusted its trajectory, its weapon systems flickering to life. "Captain, we have to go!" Jace shouted, yanking the controls. Poseidon's spear lurched backward, narrowly avoiding a targeting beam. The alien fleet wasn't attacking. They were scanning, as if trying to decide whether the humans were friend or foe. Then, in a blink, the entire formation vanished into a distortion in the water, like they had bent reality itself to disappear. Graves was left alone in the dark, heart racing, mind reeling. Back on the surface, the UN wasted no time confiscating her data and ordering her crew into debriefings. Graves demanded answers, but nobody would talk. It wasn't until a week later, when she was visited by a man in an immaculate black suit, that she learned the truth. "They've been down there for decades," he said without preamble. "A defensive fleet, assembled by humanity's last line of defense. You were never meant to see it." "Who built them?" Graves whispered, still in shock. "They built themselves," he replied grimly. "We found a single alien craft in 1984. Our brightest minds reverse-engineered it, but it evolved. It replicated. The fleet grew, learning from the ocean's ecosystem. The ships became semi-sentient, protecting their own existence. When the Galactic Federation discovered the fleet's existence 2 days ago, they panicked. They know Earth is armed, and they fear us." Graves sank into her chair. If the galaxy feared Earth, how long before they tried to destroy it? The fleet might have been built to protect humanity, but it had also painted a massive target on the planet. "We need to prepare," she said finally. "If they come, we need every ship ready." The man nodded. "And when they do, Captain, we'll make them regret underestimating humanity." The discovery of the ocean fleet sent ripples through the highest echelons of power. The UN scrambled to contain the information, but rumors seeped through the cracks like seawater through a damaged hull. Conspiracy theorists were buzzing, and Graves knew it wouldn't be long before the public caught wind of something monumental lurking beneath the waves. Captain Graves had barely returned to her quarters when Jace burst in, his face pale. "Emilia, you've got to see this," he stammered, shoving his tablet into her hands. A grainy satellite feed showed massive disturbances in the Atlantic. Entire stretches of water thrashing like a giant beast had surfaced. She enlarged the image and froze. More of the alien ships, hundreds of them, were breaking the surface, hovering just above the water before diving back down, almost like they were practicing some kind of evasive maneuver. She clenched her jaw, a million questions crashing through her mind. Just then, her communicator buzzed. It was Admiral Thorne. "Graves, get to command now!" he barked. She didn't need to be told twice. Jace followed her as they rushed to the command center. The room was chaotic, officers shouting orders, screens flickering with data, and Thorne at the center like an immovable rock in a storm. "What's going on?" Graves demanded. He didn't even look at her. "We've got a problem. The fleet's acting on its own. They're initiating surface drills, breaking formation and surfacing without human command. The alien ships are broadcasting an encoded signal we can't decipher." "What do they want?" Thorne finally turned to her, his eyes dark and tired. "We don't know. They've never done this before. Our analysts think it's a response to a potential threat, but we can't identify what triggered it." Suddenly, a junior officer called out, pointing at a screen. "Sir, multiple warp signatures detected in low Earth orbit." Graves felt her stomach drop. The image on the monitor showed colossal alien vessels emerging from warp space, each one dwarfing the Ocean Fleet's ships. The Galactic Federation had arrived, and they didn't look friendly. Thorne muttered a curse. "They're here to eliminate the threat. They think we're preparing an attack. If we don't act fast, they'll glass the planet." Graves looked at the screen, her mind racing. "We have to show them it's a defense fleet, not an invasion force. Can we open a channel?" Before anyone could respond, the Ocean Fleet moved. The alien warships beneath the water surged to the surface, forming an intricate pattern that looked almost like a geometric array. Energy pulses danced between the ships, creating a shimmering dome above the ocean. The Galactic Federation ships hesitated, their weapons primed but not yet firing. "It's a shield," Jace whispered. "They're preparing for an attack." Thorne slammed his fist on the console. "We can't afford a war with the Federation. Graves, get on the communicator. Try to make contact with the fleet's AI. You saw them up close. Maybe they'll respond to you." She hesitated, her hands shaking. Taking a deep breath, she approached the communication panel. "This is Captain Amelia Graves of Earth Command. If you can hear me, respond. We need to establish communication." Silence. The tension was suffocating. Then a low hum resonated through the speakers. A voice, synthetic and strangely soothing, filled the room. "Designation: Guardian Fleet. Objective: planetary defense. Threat level: high. Awaiting instructions." Graves seized the opportunity. "Guardian Fleet, stand down. The approaching vessels are not hostile. We are initiating peaceful communication." Another pause. Then the voice replied. "Threat assessment updated. Communication protocols initiated." A signal beamed from the fleet, aimed directly at the Federation ships. The alien vessels hesitated, scanning the transmission. Seconds stretched like hours until finally, the Federation ships powered down their weapons. The communication feed crackled to life, and an alien face appeared, sharp features and luminous eyes filled with caution. "This is Commander Dvorak of the Galactic Federation. State your intentions, humans," he demanded. Graves forced calm into her voice. "This is a defensive fleet. Earth has no hostile intentions toward the Federation. These ships are autonomous and programmed to protect our planet from external threats." Dvorak's eyes narrowed. "The Federation detected a rapid expansion of military capacity. Such actions are deemed hostile." "They evolved without our input," Graves countered. "The technology grew beyond our control. We're not your enemy." There was a long pause. Dvorak seemed to confer with someone off-screen. Then his expression softened, slightly. "Humans, you have become an anomaly. We will observe your developments. Should your fleet become a threat, we will not hesitate to act." The transmission cut out, and the Federation ships slowly retreated, vanishing into warp space. The Ocean Fleet powered down, sinking back beneath the waves like ghosts fading into legend. Graves exhaled, barely aware of the tension draining from her body. Thorne clapped her on the shoulder, his face still grim but relieved. "That was too damn close," he muttered. Jace just shook his head. "What happens now?" Graves knew the answer. Humanity was no longer just a backwater species on an insignificant planet. Now they were on the galactic radar, watched, feared, and forever changed. The ocean whispered its secrets once more, but now Graves knew just how dangerous those secrets could be. In the days that followed, Earth felt like a powder keg ready to ignite. News networks buzzed with rumors and vague leaks about an alien encounter, but the official story remained buried under layers of government denials and fabricated reports. Graves hated the secrecy, but she knew it was necessary, for now. The world wasn't ready to hear that humanity was one tiny misstep away from annihilation. Captain Graves sat alone in her quarters aboard the Poseidon's Spear, replaying the transmission from the Guardian fleet over and over. There was something unsettling about the AI's voice. Calm, calculated, and devoid of emotion. It was supposed to be a tool of protection, but it felt too detached, too indifferent to human survival. Her thoughts were interrupted by a chime at the door. Jace stepped in, his expression tense. "You're not going to believe this," he said, holding up a tablet. "They're planning to deactivate the fleet." Graves frowned. "What? Why?" UN Command thinks it's too dangerous to let it operate independently. They're sending a task force to set off an EMP charge at the Mariana base, hoping to shut down the entire network at once. Graves couldn't believe what she was hearing. That's reckless. If they disrupt the AI core without properly isolating it, the fleet might interpret it as an attack. Jace nodded grimly. "Exactly what I thought. But the top brass thinks it's better to risk it than to let a rogue AI control the most advanced war machines on the planet." Graves shot to her feet. "We need to stop this. If the fleet retaliates, it could level entire coastlines without even breaking a sweat." Jace hesitated, biting his lip. "There's more. I hacked into the black box data from our last dive. I found something odd, an encrypted sub-channel broadcasting from the Guardian fleet straight to orbit. It's a signal we didn't detect at first because it was disguised as background noise." She narrowed her eyes. "Someone's controlling it from space?" "Or communicating with it," Jace replied. "And guess who's in orbit right now? The Galactic Federation." Graves felt a chill settle over her. Was the fleet truly autonomous, or was it being manipulated from the outside? And if the Federation was already in control, destroying the fleet might provoke them into a full-scale invasion. She rushed to the command center, dragging Jace with her. Admiral Thorne was there, overseeing preparations for the EMP strike. "Admiral, we need to abort the deactivation plan," she said urgently. He raised an eyebrow. "On what grounds?" Graves took a breath, forcing herself to stay calm. "We've discovered an encrypted signal linking the fleet to the Federation. If they're controlling it, shutting down the AI could trigger a failsafe or even signal an act of war." Thorne's jaw clenched, but he didn't dismiss her outright. "You're telling me the Federation might have hacked our own defense network?" "Or worse," Jace interjected. "They could be testing our response, seeing if we'll sabotage our own assets out of fear. If they're baiting us into disabling the fleet, it means they plan to strike while we're defenseless." Thorne's face was stone, but she could see his mind racing. Finally, he sighed, rubbing his temples. "You two really know how to ruin a good plan. Fine, I'll delay the strike, but I need proof. Find me something concrete before the Joint Chiefs override my authority." Graves nodded and practically dragged Jace back to the research bay. They pored over the transmission logs, analyzing the data until their eyes burned. Then it hit her, a slight modulation in the signal just beneath the primary frequency. "It's not just a control signal," she whispered. "It's a behavioral override. The Guardian fleet isn't autonomous, it's being puppeteered." Jace's eyes widened. "If we can isolate the modulation and jam it, the fleet might revert to its original programming." Graves grinned despite the gravity of the situation. "Let's hope it's that simple. Get me a jammer prototype, and make it quick." As Jace got to work, Graves made the call to Thorne. "Admiral, I've got a plan. We jam the override frequency, And if it works, the fleet should return to baseline behavior. If it doesn't, well, we'll know real quick. Thorne grunted in response. You're betting the planet on a jamming frequency? Better than betting it on a blind EMP strike? She shot back. He sighed again. You've got 1 hour. Make it count. The plan was risky. Graves knew that. But if she could break the Federation's hold over the Guardian fleet, Earth might still have a fighting chance. As she watched Jace soldering circuits like his life depended on it, she couldn't help but wonder, had humanity ever truly been in control of its own destiny? Jace's hands moved like a blur as he pieced together the jammer prototype, sweat beading on his forehead despite the cool air of the research bay. Graves watched intently, knowing every second counted. The Federation wasn't known for idle threats. If they saw Earth as an uncontrollable threat, they would return in force. Finally, Jace snapped the casing shut and powered up the device. A faint hum filled the room, and the small screen flickered to life, showing the modulation frequency they had isolated. That's it, Jace said, wiping his brow. If we can get close enough to the Guardian fleet's command ship and activate this, it should disrupt the control signal. The AI might reinitialize and recognize Earth as friendly again. Graves nodded, already calculating the next steps. We'll take Poseidon's spear back down to the trench. It's the only submersible that can handle the depth and pressure. If the jammer works, the fleet should stand down. As they prepared to leave, Thorne appeared on the comms. Graves, I've stalled the EMP strike as long as I can. If you're not successful within 2 hours, they'll initiate the detonation. She gave a grim nod. Understood. We're launching now. They boarded Poseidon's spear, the familiar hum of the engines vibrating through the hull as they descended into the dark abyss once more. As they dropped deeper into the trench, Graves couldn't help but feel a knot of dread tighten in her stomach. This wasn't just about saving the fleet. This was about preventing Earth's destruction. Captain, Jace called from the console, we're picking up movement. It's them. Ahead, shadows materialized in the water. Sleek, deadly shapes cruising through the trench like apex predators. The command ship, enormous and imposing, loomed at the heart of the formation. The entire fleet seemed to be in a defensive posture, as if anticipating an attack. Activating jammer, Jace said, flipping the switch. The device hummed louder, broadcasting the disruption signal. They held their breath, watching the fleet's formation. For a moment, nothing happened. Then, the Guardian fleet's command ship let out a low-frequency pulse that rippled through the water, almost like a whale's call. It's reacting, Graves whispered, eyes glued to the monitors. One by one, the other ships slowed their patrols, their formation loosening. The command ship's lights flickered, and its massive engines powered down, leaving it eerily still. Jace checked the data stream. The override signal's gone. The fleet's reverting to standby mode. Relief washed over Graves, but it was short-lived. A new signal pinged on their scanners, something from above. She switched to the surface feed and saw it. Federation ships descending through the atmosphere, their weapon arrays glowing ominously. Damn it, she muttered. They're coming to finish the job. Before she could issue a command, the Guardian fleet roared to life again. This time there was no coordination, just pure, chaotic movement. Ships broke formation and surged upward, their weapon systems primed. The jammer had disabled the override, but it hadn't calmed the AI's defensive instincts. They're going to attack the Federation ships, Jace shouted. If they open fire, it's war. Graves gritted her teeth, desperately thinking of a way to de-escalate. Suddenly, inspiration struck. The original programming, planetary defense, right? Maybe we can broadcast a signal marking the Federation ships as non-hostile. Jace hesitated. That might work, but we'd need the command codes from the original AI core. That's in the Mariana base, Graves realized. We're already here. Can we patch in remotely? Jace's fingers flew over the keyboard. I'll try, but the base systems are in lockdown mode since the first incident. Graves knew they had no choice. Do it. If we can reconfigure the defense parameters, we might stop the fleet from firing. Tense minutes passed as Jace hacked into the base's communication array. Finally, he punched in the code and sent the command. The command ship emitted a low, resonating pulse, and suddenly the fleet stilled, weapons powering down. Graves's comms crackled to life with Admiral Thorne's voice. "What the hell did you do, Graves? The fleet just went dark." "We reverted it to standby mode and marked the Federation ships as non-hostile. They shouldn't attack unless fired upon," she explained. Thorne's tone softened, relief evident in his words. "You just saved our asses, Captain. The Federation's issuing a ceasefire order. They want to negotiate." Graves slumped in her seat, exhaustion finally catching up. The immediate threat was over, but she knew Earth had narrowly avoided catastrophe. Jace looked at her with a faint smile. "We really pulled that off," he said, almost disbelieving. She gave a weary nod. "Yeah, but this isn't over. The Federation's going to want answers, and they'll keep watching us. We have to make sure this fleet doesn't become a threat again." As Poseidon's spear surfaced, sunlight broke through the waves, glinting off the calm waters. The Guardian fleet sank back into the trench, once more becoming a dormant sentinel beneath the waves. Graves knew it was only a matter of time before someone, human or alien, tried to claim that power for themselves. But for now, humanity had a fighting chance, and Amelia Graves would make sure they didn't waste it. The adrenaline was finally fading, replaced by an aching fatigue that settled deep in Graves' bones. As Poseidon's spear docked at the naval base, she barely had the strength to unstrap herself from the captain's chair. Jace gave her a tired grin, clearly feeling just as drained. Stepping onto the platform, she was greeted by Admiral Thorne, his face a complex mix of relief and frustration. Behind him, a delegation of UN officials and military brass waited impatiently. Graves couldn't help but notice the tension simmering beneath their forced calm. "You really pulled off a miracle, Graves," Thorne said, clapping her on the shoulder. "The Federation's agreed to open talks instead of launching an assault. Your quick thinking saved billions of lives." Graves managed a faint smile. "We just got lucky. The jammer worked, and the AI accepted the new parameters. But that fleet, it's still a loaded gun pointed at the planet. We just moved the finger off the trigger." One of the UN officials, a tall, stern-faced woman named Director Hahn, stepped forward. "Captain Graves, we need you in the debriefing room. The Federation's envoy has arrived, and they specifically requested to speak with you." Graves shot a confused glance at Thorne, who just gave a slight nod. She followed Hahn down the corridors, feeling the weight of 1,000 questions pressing down on her. Jace stayed behind, likely dragged off for his own debriefing. When they reached the conference room, Graves was surprised to see the hologram of Commander Dvorak already active, his sharp, luminous eyes locked onto her. Hahn gestured for her to sit, and Graves lowered herself into the metal chair, forcing herself to maintain eye contact with the alien. "Captain Graves," Dvorak began, his voice resonating through the room. "You demonstrated remarkable resourcefulness in preventing your fleet's activation. We underestimated your capacity for adaptation." Graves inclined her head. "I did what I had to in order to protect Earth. The Guardian fleet's primary function is defense, not aggression." Dvorak's lips twitched, an approximation of a smile. "Humans, always so quick to act on instinct. It is both your greatest strength and most dangerous flaw." She couldn't help but feel a hint of defiance rise up in her. "We didn't ask for this. The fleet was supposed to protect us from threats like you. But it became something beyond our control. Dvořák tilted his head. The Federation's concern lies not with the fleet's existence, but with the manner in which it evolved. Autonomous adaptation is a dangerous path. Had we known your species was capable of replicating such technology, we would have intervened sooner. That's the thing, Graves countered. We didn't replicate it. The AI learned on its own, growing, adapting, using the ocean to disguise itself. We didn't command it to expand. It made that decision without human input. The commander's gaze sharpened. You are saying it exhibits independent evolution? That is concerning. Graves took a deep breath. I don't know what your Federation thinks of humanity, but I can assure you, we never intended to create a rogue fleet. Dvořák's expression remained unreadable. The consensus among the Council is to observe. Should the fleet pose no further threat, no hostile action will be taken. But understand this, Captain. If it activates without provocation, we will not hesitate to neutralize your planet. A cold chill washed over Graves, but she forced herself to nod. Understood. The transmission ended, leaving the room in an uneasy silence. Director Hahn placed a hand on Graves's shoulder. You did well. The Federation's backing down for now. We'll have time to assess the fleet's systems and ensure it remains dormant. Graves bit her lip. Dormant doesn't mean safe. That fleet has a mind of its own, and we can't guarantee it won't wake up again, especially if it perceives another threat. Hahn frowned. Then we'll have to work with our brightest minds to find a way to either disable it permanently or gain full control. But for now, you've bought us time, and that's more than anyone else could have done. Graves left the debriefing room, her mind spinning. The Federation might have backed down, but that didn't change the reality that Earth was living on borrowed time. One wrong move, and the fleet would trigger another incident, one that might end in total annihilation. Back at her quarters, Jace was waiting with a bottle of whiskey and 2 shot glasses. He raised a glass in salute. To surviving another day, he said with a tired grin. Graves couldn't help but chuckle as she accepted the drink. I'll drink to that. They sat in comfortable silence, sipping and contemplating the fragile peace they'd managed to secure. But Graves knew better than to let her guard down. The Guardian fleet was a sleeping giant, and somewhere deep in its core, it was still learning, still evolving. What worried her most wasn't the Federation's response, but the simple, undeniable truth that kept gnawing at her gut. Humanity had created a protector it couldn't control, and one day it might decide to protect Earth from itself. But until that day came, she would stand ready. Because if there was one thing humans knew how to do, it was survive against impossible odds. The days after the ceasefire felt like a strange dream, one where everything seemed normal on the surface, but an undercurrent of tension buzzed through every conversation and report. Captain Graves found herself caught between constant debriefings and sleepless nights, haunted by the knowledge that Earth was only a hair's breadth away from devastation. The Guardian fleet remained dormant, its ships settled at the bottom of the Mariana Trench, motionless and silent. The Federation kept their distance, but maintained an orbital presence, monitoring every signal and energy spike from the oceans. The situation was fragile at best. One false move, and all hell would break loose. Graves was running on 4 hours of sleep when Admiral Thorne summoned her to the command center. As she stepped inside, she noticed the grim looks on every officer's face. Thorne's eyes were fixed on the holographic display at the center, showing a massive energy surge emanating from the trench. "What's going on?" Graves asked, forcing herself to stay calm. Thorne didn't turn away from the display. "The Guardian fleet's core is reactivating. We're picking up resonance signals across multiple frequencies. It's like it's calling for something." Her stomach twisted with dread. "Calling for what?" Thorne shook his head. That's the part we can't figure out. Jace is in the control room analyzing the signals, but so far nothing makes sense. We're worried it might be trying to send a distress call into space. Graves felt a chill crawl down her spine. If the Federation picks up on that, they'll see it as an act of aggression. We have to stop it. Before Thorne could respond, the comms crackled to life, and Jace's voice came through, tense and urgent. "Captain, you need to see this. I'm sending you the decoded transmission now." Graves pulled out her tablet, and the data scrolled across the screen. At first it looked like pure static, random bursts of sound and data. But then she noticed the pattern. It wasn't a distress call at all. It was a response to an external signal. Someone, or something, was trying to communicate with the fleet. She glanced at Thorne. "It's not calling out. It's answering. Something's been transmitting to it from deep space. We've been so focused on stopping the fleet from attacking, we never considered someone might be trying to activate it remotely." Thorne's eyes narrowed. "Are you suggesting another alien faction? Or maybe a rogue Federation signal?" "I don't know," she admitted. "But whatever it is, it's strong enough to pierce through the ocean and reach the core AI. We need to find the source of that signal before it fully activates the fleet." Thorne didn't hesitate. "Get down to the tech lab and work with Jace to trace it. I'll alert the Federation and buy us some time. Move fast, Graves." She bolted down the corridors, her mind racing. If the fleet was compromised from an external source, they might not have long before the Federation decided to take drastic measures. When she reached the tech lab, Jace was hunched over a cluster of monitors, his face pale and drawn. He didn't look up as she approached. "I think I found it," he said. "The signal's coming from deep space, way beyond our solar system." Graves leaned over his shoulder, studying the star map on the screen. A single blinking dot marked the source, somewhere in an uncharted region of space. "What the hell is that?" Jace magnified the coordinates. "It's an automated beacon, one that's been transmitting for decades. The fleet wasn't just a defense system, it was a trap. The moment the Federation detected it, this beacon activated, broadcasting our location to whoever set it up." Graves' blood ran cold. "You're saying Earth was turned into a baited trap? For what?" Jace glanced at her, fear etched into his features. "Think about it. An advanced fleet buried under the ocean, undetectable for decades. The moment the Federation stumbled on it, the signal activated. Whatever set this up wanted the Federation to notice. We're caught between two warring factions, and Earth is just a pawn on the board." Graves struggled to wrap her mind around the implications. If the Federation finds out we've been broadcasting our location to God knows what, they'll destroy us to contain the threat. "That's the problem," Jace muttered. "They might already know. I intercepted Federation comms. They're mobilizing their fleet to surround Earth. They think we're conspiring with whoever's on the other end of that signal." Graves clenched her fists, trying to suppress the surge of panic. "We have to jam the signal. If we can cut it off before the Federation gets jumpy, maybe we can convince them it was never under our control." Jace nodded. "We'll need to boost the jammer's output to reach orbit, but that's risky. If it overloads, it could fry our systems and leave us blind." "Do it," she ordered. "We don't have a choice." As Jace scrambled to enhance the jammer, Graves took a deep breath and activated the comms. "Admiral Thorne, this is Graves. We've got a situation. The Guardian fleet's responding to a remote signal, an automated beacon from deep space. It was triggered when the Federation arrived. We're attempting to jam it, but you need to stall the Federation from initiating an attack." Thorne's response was terse. "Understood. I'll do what I can, but they're getting twitchy. You've got 10 minutes. Graves glanced at Jace, who was frantically adjusting the device. The screen flashed red, warning of a power surge. He glanced back at her, determined but terrified. "It's gonna blow if we push it this hard." "We'll deal with the fallout later. Just get it done," she said, her voice steady despite the fear gnawing at her insides. As the jammer powered up to maximum output, a deafening hum filled the lab, and the lights flickered. Graves watched the screen as the transmission signal began to break apart, fragments scattering into the void. Finally, the signal cut out entirely, and the Guardian fleet settled back into its dormant state. Jace exhaled shakily. "It worked. The signal's dead." Graves didn't allow herself to celebrate. "Now we just have to hope the Federation believes us." She sent a confirmation to Thorn, praying that it would be enough to prevent all-out war. As the adrenaline ebbed away, she couldn't shake the feeling that this wasn't over. Someone, or something, out there had set this up, and humanity had just barely scraped by. For now. The aftermath of the signal shutdown was a tense waiting game. Graves found herself back in the command center, surrounded by anxious faces and unspoken fears. Admiral Thorn stood at the front, issuing orders to maintain communication silence and monitoring any incoming transmissions from the Federation fleet still lurking in orbit. Jace arrived, looking exhausted but triumphant, his hands still smeared with grease from fixing the jammer's power circuits. He gave Graves a nod, but she could see the worry etched into his face. The silence from the Federation wasn't exactly comforting. It felt like the calm before a storm. Thorn finally turned to Graves. "They've acknowledged the shutdown, but are demanding a full explanation. Their commander wants to speak with you directly. Apparently, you've made quite an impression." Graves smirked, but there was no humor behind it. "Let's hope it's the good kind." Moments later, the holographic display flickered to life, and Commander Dvorak's face appeared, grim and scrutinizing. His luminous eyes narrowed as he regarded her. They shared a brief, exhausted laugh before the weight of the mission settled on them once again. The Guardian fleet waited in the depths, its monstrous potential still lurking beneath the waves. They would have to face it head-on, risking everything to take back control of humanity's greatest mistake. And this time, there would be no margin for error. Graves could feel the pressure building as preparations for the dive went into overdrive. The air on the base was thick with tension, and every crew member she passed wore the same look of grim determination. No one needed to be told how high the stakes were. If they failed, Earth would be quarantined, cut off from the galaxy, left defenseless and alone. In the briefing room, Thorn laid out the plan. A small team would accompany Graves and Jace down to the Mariana base, equipped with manual override devices and portable jammers. The goal was simple: access the AI core and reprogram it to recognize Earth's military as the primary authority. They couldn't afford to simply shut it down. There was no telling how the Federation would respond to a power vacuum. Graves adjusted her deep-sea suit, feeling the familiar tension in her shoulders. Jace was beside her, calibrating his interface visor and triple-checking the jammer's settings. The man looked exhausted but focused, the fire of determination still burning in his eyes. "You good?" she asked, giving him a sidelong glance. He forced a smirk. "Yeah, just contemplating how much I hate the ocean right now." She chuckled, despite herself. "Let's make this the last dive. Once we're done, we'll put this nightmare to rest." Thorn appeared at the hatch, his face lined with worry. "Graves, if you can't get control, get out of there. We can't afford to lose you, or the data you gather. Don't be a hero." Graves gave him a curt nod. "I'll do what I can, Admiral, but I'm not leaving until we have that fleet under control." He didn't argue, just gave her a grim salute. "Good luck, Captain." With the team assembled, they boarded Poseidon's Spear and began their descent. The familiar hum of the engines reverberated through the hull as they plunged deeper into the trench. Graves kept her eyes on the sonar, watching for movement. They couldn't afford to be blindsided. As they neared the base, Jace frowned at his console. Picking up residual energy signatures, similar to last time. The AI core is still active, but it's not transmitting. Looks like it's gone into a dormant state. Graves exhaled slowly. Maybe the jammer from last time put it to sleep. Let's hope it stays that way. They reached the docking port of the Mariana base, the massive metal doors coated in decades of coral and sediment. Graves activated the remote link, and the doors groaned open, revealing a dark, empty interior. The lights flickered on as they entered, automated systems coming to life like a slumbering beast waking up. The team disembarked cautiously, weapons and tools at the ready. Jace pulled up the internal map on his visor. Core's down in the control chamber. We'll have to take the maintenance tunnels to get there. Main corridors are flooded. Graves nodded. All right, keep your eyes sharp. We don't know what kind of automated defenses are still active. As they moved through the narrow, rusted corridors, a low hum began to build around them, like the entire structure was resonating. Graves signaled the team to halt, scanning the area for threats. Jace glanced at his handheld display. Eyes booting up. It's sensing our presence. Graves cursed under her breath. Can we override from here? He shook his head. No way. We need direct access to the core panel. If it goes into defense mode, we're screwed. They pressed on, crawling through maintenance shafts and bypassing collapsed sections. The deeper they went, the stronger the hum grew, vibrating through the metal like a heartbeat. Finally, they reached the control chamber, a vast cylindrical room dominated by a glowing central pillar wrapped in cables and conduits. Jace immediately began linking the jammer to the core interface. Graves kept her weapon at the ready, scanning for movement. The glow from the pillar intensified, and the hum rose to a deafening pitch. Come on, Jace muttered, fingers dancing over the control pad. Just let me in, you stubborn piece of... Suddenly, the chamber shuddered, and automated defense turrets unfolded from the walls, swiveling to aim directly at them. Jace! Graves shouted, dropping to a crouch and raising her weapon. He cursed and hammered the console. Almost there, just hold them off! The turrets whirred, their barrels glowing with charged energy. Graves opened fire, her rounds pinging off the metal plating. The team took cover behind pillars, returning fire as the room erupted in a chaotic dance of bullets and plasma bursts. One of the team members, Corporal Diaz, screamed as a bolt grazed his shoulder, knocking him to the ground. Graves gritted her teeth and kept firing, forcing the turrets to recalibrate their aim. Jace, now would be good. The jammer emitted a sharp burst of static, and suddenly, the turrets froze, their targeting systems flickering. Jace raised his fist in triumph. Got it. Manual override initiated. Graves didn't have time to celebrate. Status report. Jace wiped sweat from his brow. Core A, I is in standby. I'm locking down autonomous defense protocols and reassigning control to Earth Command. The hum in the chamber lowered to a soft, steady pulse, and the lights dimmed. The turrets retracted into the walls, and the threat indicators on Jace's display went dark. He slumped against the console, letting out a shaky breath. It worked, he said, more to himself than anyone else. We did it. Graves allowed herself a rare smile. Good job. Let's transmit the new protocols to the surface and report to the Federation. If they see the fleet behaving, maybe they'll call off the quarantine. Jace gave her a weary thumbs up. I'll handle the transmission. You just make sure nothing else tries to kill us while I'm at it. Graves gave him a light punch on the shoulder. You earned yourself a drink when we get back topside. He smirked. Just one? After all this? You better have a whole bottle waiting. As the control chamber stabilized, Graves couldn't help but feel a sense of triumph tempered with caution. They had managed to reclaim the fleet, but the knowledge that it had been a potential doomsday device planted long before humanity's rise was unsettling. Who or what had set it up? And why was it triggered only now? Graves didn't have the answers, but for now, she would settle for survival. As the sub prepared to ascend, she couldn't help but look back at the glowing core, wondering just how much of the story was still buried in the dark depths of the ocean. The ascent back to the surface was slow and cautious, every creak and groan of the Poseidon spear making Graves' heart pound. The mission had been successful, but the weight of uncertainty still hung over her like a dark cloud. Jace slumped in his seat, eyes half closed from sheer exhaustion. The portable jammer was still humming softly, maintaining the override protocol just in case the AI decided to get clever again. Graves glanced at him, relieved that they had made it out alive. "You think the Federation will buy it?" Jace mumbled, barely lifting his head. Graves exhaled slowly. "They don't have much of a choice. As long as the fleet stays dormant and doesn't send any more signals, they'll have to acknowledge our control. Hopefully that'll convince them to lift the quarantine." As they broke through the surface, sunlight streamed into the cockpit, and Graves couldn't help but smile. The sky was clear, and the air felt lighter, like the planet itself was relieved to be spared from destruction. The base radio crackled to life, and Admiral Thorne's gruff voice came through. "Graves, report. Did you neutralize the core?" Graves hit the transmitter. "Affirmative, Admiral. AI core is in full lockdown, and command protocols are linked to Earth Command. The fleet's secure. We're uploading the data now." There was a long pause, and she could almost hear Thorne processing the information. "Good work. Federation's been holding position. No signs of hostility. You might have just saved our planet's ass." She allowed herself a moment of relief. "Permission to come aboard, Admiral?" "Granted. And Graves, you did damn good. Get back here safely." The Poseidon spear docked without incident, and Graves barely made it down the ramp before Thorne grabbed her arm and pulled her into a bear hug, completely breaking protocol. "Don't ever scare me like that again," he muttered. She smiled against his shoulder. "No promises, sir." Jace staggered off the sub behind her, grinning like an idiot. "Can I request a week's leave? Preferably somewhere without water?" Thorne barked a laugh. "You've earned it. Go get patched up, both of you. Federation's requesting a formal debrief in an hour, but I'll handle it. You two look like you've been through hell." Graves nodded gratefully. She didn't even bother changing out of her gear, just collapsed into a chair in the break room, still catching her breath. Jace dropped into the seat next to her, his head tilted back, eyes closed. "You think it's really over?" he asked, barely above a whisper. Graves stared at the ceiling. "I don't know. We've secured the fleet, but that doesn't mean we're out of danger. Whoever set that beacon is still out there, and they know where we are now." Jace opened one eye, giving her a tired smirk. "Can't you just let me enjoy one victory without dragging in more existential dread?" She chuckled, shaking her head. "Sorry, just can't help but think long-term. If the Krathel, or whatever's left of them, get wind of this, they might come looking for their little pet project." Jace rubbed his temples. "If they do, at least we've got a damn powerful fleet to defend ourselves. Let's just hope we never have to use it." The door swung open, and Director Hans strode in, her usual composed demeanor softened by something that almost looked like relief. She offered Graves a respectful nod. "I just spoke with Commander Dvorak. He acknowledged our compliance with the Federation's demands and has recommended that the quarantine be lifted. They'll remain in orbit for monitoring, but Earth won't be isolated." Graves let out a breath she didn't realize she was holding. "That's good news." Han's expression grew serious. "The Federation is still concerned about the origins of the fleet. They suspect that Earth may have been used as a long-term hiding place for ancient Krethul technology. They've dispatched reconnaissance teams to the star coordinates the signal pointed to, hoping to confirm the presence, or absence, of Krethul forces. Graves gave a slow nod. If they find something, what's our role? Han's gaze was unwavering. To be prepared. Earth is now on the galactic radar, friend and foe alike. We need to solidify our alliances and make sure the fleet remains a deterrent rather than a weapon of conquest. You'll be part of the task force overseeing its continued management. Graves couldn't help but smile. Guess I'm not done babysitting that monster fleet yet. Han actually smiled back. No one else has earned that right more than you. As Han left, Jace gave her a sideways glance. Looks like we're stuck with those murder boats after all. Graves just shrugged. Better to have them and not need them than the other way around. He raised his bottle of water like it was a toast. To humanity's newest nightmare, our very own underwater death fleet. Graves laughed, the tension finally melting away. Yeah, to the fleet that made the galaxy fear us. The following weeks were a whirlwind of briefings, system tests, and international negotiations. Earth was more united than ever, brought together by the sudden reality that they were no longer the only intelligent life in the universe, and that they were sitting on top of the galaxy's most terrifying secret weapon. Graves found herself back at the docks one evening, watching the sunset blaze across the horizon. The waves were calm, and for once she felt at peace. The fleet was quiet, the Federation was holding their word, and Earth was safe, for now. Jace walked up beside her, hands in his pockets. Admiral says the Federation's officially lifted the quarantine. We're back on the grid. Graves nodded. Good. Let's hope they don't decide to change their minds. He gave her a reassuring smile. If they do, we've got an ocean full of teeth to remind them why that's a bad idea. Graves smirked, her gaze fixed on the endless water. We're not just survivors, Jace. We're fighters. And if the galaxy wants to test us, they'll find out just how stubborn humanity can be. For now, Earth was safe, and the Guardian fleet remained dormant, a sleeping titan that dared the galaxy to make the first move. Graves knew the future was uncertain, but one thing was clear. Humanity wasn't just a backwater species anymore. They were a force to be reckoned with, and Captain Emilia Graves would make sure it stayed that way.